Hello friends and followers. Here's an update on the national company HRO 500 I've been working on. So I did put this national onto eBay, this HRO 500, and a gentleman in Japan, an amateur radio operator, has contacted me, and it looks like he's refurbishing one. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so the work on Sunday, yesterday, which was August 18th, was that I did change this 7.3 volt, 7.5 volt Xenier to a new one. And this 5 volt Xenier, I only had a 5.1, so I changed that. This resistor was way out of tolerance. It was really high, 100 ohms, 200 ohms, I don't recall. This 100 ohm resistor was about 275 ohms. So I replaced all this stuff. I can't say it made a huge difference in the operation of the radio, but I felt better having it done. To be done is replace this with 12 volts in here. And we'll see how that goes. And probably replace these diodes too. That's a small operation. Anyway, so where are these physically on the HRO 500? Well, here's the HRO 500 here. And the rectifier diodes. I'm looking for a device to point. A pointer device here. There we go. So these two diodes here and here are the rectifier diodes. That corresponds to these two here. The Xenier, 12 volt Xenier is right here. I've not got around to fixing that yet. At any rate, the 47 ohm resistor is here. This is a 100 ohm right here, so this was way out. This was way out. Here's the 7.5 volt Xenier right here. And the other Xenier is hiding here. It's basically right there. So that the 5.1 volt Xenier I replaced is right there. As you can see, there it is. So measured up those voltages and they all look reasonable. I also varied the power supply input current, because I always feed this thing through the power plug on the outside. And I could see those would tolerate maybe a 12 to like 15 volt swing. I wasn't seeing any changes. So that's a good sign. Okay, so the gentleman in Japan is, I suppose he's changing this wafer here. I think he said it was the back one he was working on. So yeah, mine's pretty shabby also. And I just told him to adapt a wafer. So I gave him a hint how to do that and showed him the YouTube videos. So I adapted this wafer for the front one here. And how's that working out? Well, I still have extreme instability problems with anything bumping the case, and this thing will go out of lock. And so I think I've traced that to the problem that they use these solid wires all from the variable capacitor that controls the HRO when you tune the synthesizer. So when you tune the synthesizer, it is changing a variable capacitor. And let's pick up this radio and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm thinking about taking these solid lines out and changing them to just plain old wire. Just because, I mean, I know those conduct well and all that, but the mechanical inferences of stuff going through there is really unfortunate. So anyway, let's take a look at that. So I'm not convinced that this variable capacitor is doing well, in that if I put a little bit of pressure on this thing, it will go out of sync. It'll change the HF oscillator's frequency fairly radically. So I'm not sure if this capacitor is having problems. It has bad solder joints, it's bad variable capacitor, but this one does the HF oscillator. And when you turn the synthesizer, this is the one that turns. Well, they both turn. These both turn in tandem, but this bottom one is what really controls your HF oscillator, and I think the tuned IF. So I really, I think, got to pull this one out. Just pull it out and inspect it for integrity. Clean it up and get rid of those wires which are stiff, as those are transmitting mechanical vibrations. You can see the stiff wires going down right there. Not these, but the ones behind it. And get some light in there. Yeah, you can see those wires going down. One on the right there, and one on the left, and there's one kind of way down in there that goes down. Anyway, I think those are a problem. So it's going to be a lot of work, but I got to pull this thing out and just clean it and make sure it's electrically intact. Make sure it doesn't have vibration, and probably get these solid wires out. All right. So that's my update on this thing. The synthesizer lock is very fragile. I can lock this thing here and there on most bands, but it's hard to lock it. So I might need higher levels out. And yeah, it's frustrating. So what else did I do? I tried to calibrate this crystal here, 500 kilohertz crystal. And for that, I finally figured out an ingenious way to do it. Simply use the HF radio here, the 10-tech Paragon, and I put this thing on 5 megahertz, 10 megahertz, 20, 25 megahertz, and I was able to hear that harmonic of that crystal and tune this capacitor until it was steady. This capacitor did not seem to have much of an effect on that crystal frequency, but I could tell my 500 kC crystal was pretty much on. Even when I was at 20, 25 megahertz, it seemed like it was in line. So that's about it for this thing. I gotta get a slug for this can here. Where is it? Yeah, the guy broke the slug in one of these cans here, so I gotta get that going. I bought a bunch of parts recently off eBay from somebody that must have had access to the old stash from National. So I got a couple cans coming with slugs. I also bought a can, which I overpaid for, from somebody on eBay, but that's before I found the stash of stuff that I just bought last night. So yeah, this thing's been an obsession. I have a real love and hate with this radio, as with most radios that I can't really fix fast. So I have it on eBay for sale. If somebody wants it, go ahead and buy it. That means I don't have to fix it. But otherwise, I'm kind of stubborn, and I've been just trying to perfect this thing to get it working really well. If I ever get the synthesizer to work well, then I think I'll start cleaning it up some more. This knob is binding a bit, and the microphonics in this radio are so bad that when I just turn this knob and it binds a bit, that's enough mechanical motion to make this thing go out of sync. It's that bad. If I simply hit it like that, it goes out of sync. So I need to get a video of that and how to check the radio for sync again. I did find that you can pull out the scanning transistor. So you can pull out this transistor here that makes it scan, the one right in there. And then it won't scan anymore for lock. But with that said, you can still get it to lock by tuning the synthesizer and going very close, and then putting a scope here on these two resistors right here. Put a scope right there, and you can look at the audio tone, and it'll eventually go to DC, and then that means you're locked. So you can lock even without the transistor in there, and you know you're locked because when you're then tuning your synthesizer a little bit to try and upset it a bit, you'll notice that there will be a DC offset on your oscilloscope that'll go up and down according to the motion. And when you're not locked, you can't change that. Also, when you're not locked, you can actually tune the receiver using the synthesizer control, because it's just changing the HF oscillator right about there with this variable capacitor with these right about here, I think. No, right here. those plates right about there are changing the HF oscillator. And so you can tune this like a regular radio, just tune it carefully. You'll hear sideband and 40 and everything. But then once you lock, you can use this tuning. And in fact, if you can set this thing to a 500 kc marker, like 7.000, you can still tune with this, even if you're not locked. It'll still tune. It's just not terribly easy or calibrated, but it will still tune unlocked. And oh yeah, to make that work, you got to pull out the muting transistor. So yeah, you got to pull out the muting transistor, which is that one that's gone there, one of those, I guess. But you'll be able to listen if your receiver's working at all. Okay, and the other problem I've been having is this bistable oscillator here. It seems like it's on the fritz. So I couldn't get this thing to oscillate at all and turn on my unlock light. So that has had problems. So yeah, I've been having a rash of problems with this thing. So I think the reason why this doesn't start sometimes is a problem with the capacitor here. All right, so that's my update on the HRO 500. This one has tons of problems that I got to ferret out. It'd be nicer to buy a new one or one that has had less use and wear, but this one's pretty good, I guess. The chassis is nice and clean. It's a survivor in that way. I suppose I'll get this thing figured out if I just keep cranking at it. All right, thanks for watching. And this update's from my friend in Japan who is fixing his HRO 500. And my advice to him is look at the schematic. And I think, oh yeah, I did redo the schematic and I gave it to the guy, Ed, who runs Bama. So I did try and get a good schematic up there, but he had good schematics on Bama. I simply have moved the images around and put them into a PDF. So if you look at the schematic now for this thing, I arranged like all three of these sections into one big section so you can see it. And then here's the synthesizer section, and here's the rest of the receiver. And so these are going to be on Bama under National HRO 500 real soon, thanks to Ed. So that's my little story here. And what else can I say about this? Yeah, just get in there and keep replacing old capacitors, and you know, just keep replacing stuff and see what you find. Try to replace all the power transistors that go out of sync. They go out of tolerance. So that's kind of what I've been doing. Some of these transistors are hard to get to, but, or I'm sorry, resistors, but try and replace anything that matters. Usually things like an emitter or collector circuit that are way out, replace those, get everything back into tolerance. So yeah, so what's critical on my list then is removing this air capacitor, mechanical air capacitor, and making sure it's correct, and getting rid of the rods here that go to the band switch. Those are a nightmare. And my band switch is loose now because I put in that huge ceramic band switch for the front of it. So I put that in, and I wasn't even going to anchor this, but since I'm having such trouble with microphonics, I guess I will. So this one is too wide for these little screws here. So I'm probably going to put screws here through these holes. These holes are just here conveniently for some reason, and I'm going to use those to anchor this one. These I'm going to shorten and then anchor this one down. This one's pretty loose. They're all loose. I guess this one isn't, but anyway, my friend in Japan is working on that one. I think the one in the back, which I think does the antenna stuff and the preselector, I'm guessing, but haven't had to mess with that one a whole lot because mine works. But you can look at the schematic and try to make sure that the switches that you produce are the same as these. So this is a pretty standard switch here. That's one you can just buy right there. You will always have switches with 2 poles and 2 tabs there. Those are easy to find. They're very common. So things like this that are kind of bizarre. So this is common actually. except you need a shorting on one side of it, so that's a little hard to find. So I picked up a Johnson switch, which is sort of like that, but I haven't hacked it up yet. What else is he working on here? Yeah, this looks custom here, so that's normal. Actually, you can make this thing. So look at my videos on how to cut these, and you can take a normal run-of-the-mill switch and then take a cutoff tool and cut this part away, cut this part out, and just cut that away. It's not easy, but you can do it. So yeah, you can make these wafers out of standard wafers just by cutting, and it looks like they really like using it like that. All right, so that's my little update, and for helping my friend in Japan. Threshold, so these switches aren't band switches. What's that? That's on a band switch. And this is what? Band switch? Yeah, it is, for kilohertz or something. That's not, okay, that's not very standard either. So yeah, if you're lucky, the band switch you have that's broken will be something you can find that's standard, and you can just work on it that way. Okay. That's my update. I hope you're having a good day. Thanks for watching.